Guys, so much love for you both here this weekend. What's it been like sharing the love with the fans this weekend? And we have the big TARDIS in the background as well.
It's been terrible. Hasn't it, Billie?
It's been awful. You've been horrible.
Horrible. Can't wait to leave.
That's not the feedback we were looking for.
Joking.
Just joking, guys.
We're not Americans, you know. Let's not get American.
We understand the humour.
We're close to Salford here. Let's not get American about it.
We love the Northerners. You are a Northerner. There you go.
What's been? It must be, you know, pun intended, like travelling back in time, back to 2005, because it's one of the first times we've seen you guys together in a long time. What was it like first screen testing with each other all those years ago?
I don't think we did a screen test. I think we did an audition together.
An audition?
Yeah, I remember auditioning with you, I think in the old BBC building, in the basement.
Did we? I thought we auditioned separately and they just put us together.
No, I think we auditioned separate. I didn't know. Did you audition?
Well, yeah, I had to do a tape and I had to do the scene with the... It was me in the BBC, old BBC building on Oxford Road in Manchester with a plastic hand rolling around the floor.
Well, I'm sad I didn't see that, but I did my own a singular audition, and then I did a duo audition with you. Not a duo, a chemistry test. That's
chemistry test, yeah.
That's when they test your chemistry.
And the chemistry was absolutely brilliant, clearly.
The chemistry was great.
Well, we'd actually met. We actually met before.
Where?
Brian Hill.
Oh yeah, Brian Hill in Borough.
In a bar in Borough.
Yeah,
before we even knew about doing Doctor Who together.
Yeah.
And Billie got drunk and I stayed sober.
That doesn't sound
No, it was the other way around.
It must have been very daunting for both of you, specifically you, Christopher, as well. It's such a huge role to take on, and you more than made it your own. The outfit was something that we'd never seen before with the leather jacket.
And you'll never see again.
I loved it. It was brilliant. It really made you stand out.
It wasn't daunting for me.
Can you hear yourself now?
Yeah, but I can't hear anybody else. It wasn't daunting for me. I'd been in the industry, working professionally since 1989. I'd led feature films. I'd led television programs across all 4 channels. So it wasn't daunting for me. For me, it was another job. It came with a lot more baggage, but I think it was...
It was way more daunting for me, likely. It was my first acting job, really.
Well, you did Bella and the Boys.
Well, I had done that, but this was a different scale.
Yeah. So I think it was. I mean, Billie was... How old were you when we did that?
22.
Yeah, and I was 40. I mean, I had all this experience. It was Billie that was...
Freaked out.
Freaked out and thrown into the deep end. And that's kind of what bonded us, because I tried to keep an eye out for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Because,
yeah, you did.
You know, you can... people can forget the kind of pressure that's on somebody, particularly a young person, in that. And it was pre-Me Too, it was pre-Black Lives Matter, it was pre all this mental health awareness stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was none of that.
It was more lawless.
It was lawless, as we found out subsequently. So, yeah.
And were you guys fans of the older versions? Were you ever introduced to the older versions of the show? Because it was a large gap before 2005 when we saw the character return with yourselves.
I wasn't... Okay, so this is one of the reasons I was so daunted about it, because I wasn't a Doctor Who fan. We didn't watch it as a family. I remember the theme tune, but that really is the extent of my knowledge. But I knew, as soon as I signed on to it, I knew very quickly how much people loved it and how passionately people felt. And that was terrifying to me. Just the sort of, people were really, really not best pleased that I was in any way involved. And I think, thank God there wasn't social media at that point, because I think I would have, I don't know, it would have been a tenfold. But I became aware very quickly how much fandom there was involved in the series. And it changed and people grew to like the characters.
You
Thank
smashed
God.
it. Everyone loved both of you.
Yeah, it was good.
Series.
It worked out well in the end. But one thing I know about Doctor Who fans is they don't always like change. Am I right? Is that unreasonable?
But it's also true about Britain, because what Billie was dealing with was snobbery. Because Billie had been, quote unquote, a pop star, it was like, well, she can't act. And then subsequently, she went on and did Yerma on stage and got the greatest reviews you've ever seen. But in this country, unlike in America, it's partly to do with the class system. You're supposed to stay in your box. And Billie had to fight all that because she'd had this previous career. But she'd already trained to act as well. So you had to deal with that.
Yeah. And that's, again, that's why I'm so pleased I had no access to social media.
Yeah.
Can you imagine?
A lot of snobbery about in this country about
people changing lanes.
You know, it's like everybody's always said, I can't do comedy, I'm too serious to play. And it's just snobbery and limited imagination, which is rooted in the class system, really.
Well, that was one of the things that attracted you to the character anyway, because like you said, you'd done some darker roles and you wanted to do something more light-hearted and targeted towards a younger audience, wasn't it?
I wanted to lead something that was targeting children. And I don't want to offend anybody, but, you know, it's 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, so we had to think about that audience. It's pre-Watershed, so, yeah, I wanted to do something which was completely unexpected.
What were some of the highlights of you guys filming together? You got to meet a lot of iconic characters, the most iconic villain in the history of the show, one of the most iconic villains in Sci-Fi, in the Daleks. What was it like coming face to face with the Dalek on set?
What was it like, Chris?
Well, one of my favourite stories about me and Billie is we were filming, I think we might have been filming, we were filming an episode, and because the director was atrocious, we ran 3 hours late. You know, the crew were not happy, we weren't happy, and we had to go straight from the set to a read-through in the BBC Cardiff, and me and Billie walked in, and we were always on time, and we've got good manners, and we felt terrible because we were late, and all these actors were sat round, and it was for the read-through of Dalek, and me and Billie sat down, we started reading the episode, and then somebody read the stage directions, enter the Dalek, and then Nicholas Briggs, unbeknownst to us, has got the voice thing on. Do you remember? And he starts doing the Dalek voice.
Did we laugh?
What?
Did we laugh?
Yeah, we laughed. You know, and it did feel slightly iconic, but it also felt quite camp, you know. So that was my strong memory of meeting that iconic character was a bloke with a box sat under a table. And me and Billie falling off our chairs out of exhaustion and sheer campery.
You recall all of that, Billie, yeah?
Well, I can't remember that. Now that you're saying it, I can remember bringing it back. My favourite episode to shoot was all the Charles Dickens stuff. I just loved
Simon
that.
Callow.
Loved
that was our
that.
Christmas. That was our
like Christmas every day on
Fake
set.
snow.
Fake snow. The dress, Simon Callow, just the whole thing for me. That was my sweet spot.
Simon Callow, in between takes, was in his little cabin, tiny little cabin, writing the second volume of his biography of Orson Welles. Do you remember? I mean, he's a major intellectual, and he'd do a take, and then he'd be tapping away on his laptop.
Yeah, he was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah. But we were lucky because we had chemistry from the start, and people were talking about it, but it was just, I don't know, we were just fortunate, weren't we,
Yeah, we
in that
were.
way. But she'd have chemistry with a lump of concrete.
Maybe in the past.
She charms people. You know, so that was just good fortune, really.
Yeah.
You
We were
both
lucky in that way.
returned to your characters in audiobook form. And what was it like for you, Christopher, to hear the love of the fans? And I'm guessing today as well, the amount of people asking you, would you ever return on the television as the Doctor? You know, that must have happened countless times for you over the number of years since the show. What was it like hearing the love of the fans for the audiobook?
Well, I'd been fortunate because I'd been working for so long before I did Doctor Who with our friends in the North and Cracker and Elizabeth and stuff. So I already had a pretty strong relationship with the public. So I was used to that, and I was used to making them aware that it's a load of smoke and mirrors, really. But it's lovely. I mean, I remember being in the Trafford Centre about a mile away when the series was going out, and a woman came up to me and said, "Will you say hello to my son?" So I said hello to her son, and he burst into tears because he was about 25. That's a joke. He was about 8, and he couldn't make sense that the Doctor was in the Trafford Centre because he was at the age of innocence where he could make the division. So all that gives you a sense of responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
And it's nice to feel the love, it is.
Yeah, I like it. To be honest, I can't. There is no other job for me, anyway, that would continue to have this life force beyond filming. It just goes on and on and on. It feels like it feels like Arrested Development in some ways.
Yeah.
Because it feels like you're stuck in this. I mean, for me, a 19-year-old's head, which is, you know, has its plus side. But it's a beautiful thing. We're very fortunate in that way. And actually, I have to say, since I've had kids myself, I understand this stuff more. I understand what it feels like to be a fan. I see them being huge fans of things, and it brings me in more to understanding like extreme fandom, and it really helps me connect to everyone.
And you were, you know, such a huge part. You were the bridge between the first and the second series. What was it like, you know, going from working with Christopher Eccleston to David Tennant? Because you were someone that the fans had already connected with and associated with the show at that point. And I'm guessing that your confidence had built massively working with someone like Christopher anyway at that point.
I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but when you said you were going, I wanted to go as well.
I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm sure I told you that.
The whole thing was politically manipulated by others. Interfered with our relationship, but that's another story.
But I really wanted to leave as well, because I sort of felt like, well, why and how and all of these things. And in a way it was slightly disappointing because, you know, we'd gone through the sort of stressful time of building a new show, and the pressure was, it was huge, and the expectations were high, and you know, it meant that you could never really fully settle into it and enjoy the madness of it because you would, you know, you didn't know which way it was going to go, basically. So it felt like a little mini grief to me. So it was quite, it was quite a leap of faith and imagination. And thankfully, David is a lovely bloke, and he was really nervous, and I felt like I could do what Chris did for me and take care of him and show him the ropes, and you know. I
didn't know that. That makes sense. Yeah. Because I did have to look out for you. You were terrified.
Yeah, I was terrified.
You were. I remember.
Yeah, probably.
And then David would have been. So.
Yeah, and
so it goes.
Yeah, and Matt was as well.
Yeah.
And it's like every new incarnation is so frightened. And everyone has to sort of help the new one through in this really sweet, sort of familial way.
But David and Matt were a lot younger than me, weren't they, when they started?
Oh my God. Well, were they? David?
Well, I was 40.
David was, I guess what was he, early 30s? And then Matt was really a lot younger, yeah. No offense.
And now I'm 60.
Well, I'm 41.
No.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the 60th anniversary of the show this year, and like I said, people would love to see you both come back at some point. But Christopher, for you, your experience was...
Only one person.
No, come on, everyone.
And that was my mother.
Guys, wouldn't you love
who's
to
over
see...
there with the beard. Mum, you need to shave.
You'd all love to see Christopher come back as the Doctor, right? See? Now, what would have to happen for that to become a reality?
Sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner, and I'll come back. So can you arrange that?
Did you find it hard to be like associated with the character given?
Not at all. I love being associated with the character.
Okay.
Just don't like being associated with those people and the politics that went on in the first series. The first series was a mess, and it wasn't to do with me or Billie. It was to do with the people who were supposed to make it, and it was a mess. And the first series of any show, Billie did Confessions of a...
Cool girl.
You know, first series, nobody wants to know. The BBC were like, we're going to keep a big distance from this. And then as soon as it was a success, they were all up close going, I was responsible for that. But they were all like at a distance, like this is a folly. Eccleston's folly, Piper's folly, Russell T. Davies's folly. And then when it worked, suddenly, oh yeah, I worked on that. They wouldn't come anywhere near us. And then they jump on the bandwagon. Those kind of politics, I'm not very good at handling. I can't swallow that shit.
Billie, would you ever return to the show if...
Well, I've returned a bunch of times.
Yeah. Returned.
I couldn't stop returning for a while.
It's been a while, though.
It has been a while. Too
What do you
long.
think?
Too
It's
long.
been too long.
Yeah,
It could happen.
I think I would. I think I'd go back.
Okay.
I think also now, again, because my kids are a bit older, I'd quite like to share all of that with them as well.
Amazing. Right, well, we're going to open it up to the fans now. I know you guys have got a bunch of questions, so we've got the microphone there in the middle. I really appreciate your time, guys.
Oh, that's good. You don't have to pass it round. That's easier.
Hi there, I'm a big fan of you both. I love the first season. I think you've got amazing chemistry. And Chris, I love you in Heroes as well.
Thank you.
My question is, if you could go anywhere in space and time or meet anyone who's ever lived, who or where would you want to go?
Oh God, I get asked this, and it's tricky. You know, I actually think I'd like to, and this sounds a bit small, but I'd like to go back in time and see my mum and dad together when they were younger, and see them with me when they were younger. Maybe even go back in time and see myself with like my first boyfriend, just my own experiences mostly, because I've read so much about, you know, the greats, but to actually go back and see whether my version of events is actually accurate, I'd really like that.
I love that answer. Chris?
It's exactly the same, and I've said it before. I'd like to go back to the Salford of my mum and dad's childhood. My dad was born in 1929 in Salford. My mum was born in 1932. I'd like to see them as children, see the social conditions and fabric that raised them, because I wouldn't be anywhere without those two. The values and the hard work they instilled in me, and the insistence on honesty and decency. I'd really like to see what formed them. And I'd love to see them as a young couple meeting. I have a scarf that my mum gave to my dad in 1951, a green polka dot tootle scarf. I'd like to see that. That's what I'd like to see most of all.
Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
So I've got one question for Christopher and one question for Billie.
Go for it.
My question for Christopher is, obviously recently in The Big Finish you've worked with the Brigadier, who is a Doctor Who legend. Is there any other Doctor Who legendary sort of figures of companions you would have loved to work with?
There's only one companion I'd work with. I've said this a lot. I'd only work with Rose. There's only Rose for the 9th Doctor. It's true. I have to say, I don't like the romance stuff. I think we did something better than kind of a contemporary heterosexual romance. They're equal. What we were doing was equal.
Yeah, almost.
Even the kiss was not romantic. It's kind of, it's more than that. And I worked with David Warner, who's the greatest Doctor Who who's never been, who sadly passed away for the 60th anniversary of Big Finish Audio. So I've done it. I've worked with Billie and I've worked with David Warner. They're the two.
And then my question for Billie is, obviously in Series 4 you worked with Catherine Tate and she's returned for the 60th with David. Did you ever have a moment where, number one, you congratulated them, and number two, even slightly in the back of your mind thought, hey, hang on, I was here first?
Did I congratulate them? I don't think I congratulated them. Maybe I should have congratulated them. No, because actually, when I left up properly after Series 2, I was ready for it. I really wanted to do something different. I wanted to live in London again. I wanted to be with my friends. I wanted part of my life back that I didn't have when I was doing Doctor Who. So I was happy. I was happy to hand that over. I was happy for them.
Thank you. And just a quick one for Christopher. Obviously, been quite a few.
Are you Michael Parkinson? This is the third question you've done, brother.
Might be. Obviously, quite a few years ago, you did Top Gear, did your lap. With
Yeah, I
age,
regret that. What was I doing with Paxman? What a disaster that was. Anyway, go on.
With age, do you reckon you could do a better lap with a similar sort of car, or do you reckon you peaked back then, you're not going to do any better?
Wait,
I could go a lot faster if I was chasing Paxman in a car.
What was your score? What
Round
was your
the track.
time? Was it bad, your time?
No, it wasn't. Thanks. I can only drive automatic cars.
I did it as well.
I don't do machismo. I don't like machismo. So, yeah, my score was much worse than Billie's, but much better than Vinnie Jones, the hard man. And that made me feel tough.
Thank you very much.
Hi. First off, you two are great. You made me love Doctor Who.
Thank you.
If it wasn't for you, Christopher Eccleston, I wouldn't have liked it. Obviously, David Tennant's great.
Can't hear you, can't you?
David Tennant's great, but you are the Doctor. In
My mum
eyes.
agrees with you.
Does she still need to shave?
Yeah, she's gone for a shave.
I'll tell her when she comes back. And obviously, Billie, you were a big thing for my childhood because I'm a 90s kid. So
yes.
you know exactly what it is.
I know the 90s.
But my question is actually for you, Billie.
Yeah.
It's Doctor Who related, I promise. There's a scene that's resurfaced recently on the internet from, I can't remember when, but it's the Daleks and the Cybermen meet and they have some banter.
Yeah.
Like, I genuinely forgot how funny that scene was until it's blew up my TikTok. How many takes did that take? Like, how did you keep a serious face? And
Well, look, I can't remember that scene.
Disco fever.
But whenever I saw the Daleks or the Cybermen on set, I would laugh my ass off because I could never, and probably because I was, I wasn't a big, Whovian. They just made me laugh. Watching the group of Cybermen have to walk in unison and their arms would be strapped together with elastic bands just made me die. I couldn't take, I'm sorry to say, because I know some people find it frustrating, but I could never, I would always laugh. Way beyond that scene, which I'll now go and Google on the way home.
When you watch it, you're you all have a serious face, and I watch it, I'm like, how?
I can't imagine my face was serious for very long at all. Am I covering my mouth? That sounds right.
Yeah, watch it. It's so funny. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Oh, yes, well done.
Chris,
Yes?
what's your favourite episode you filmed?
It changes quite a lot. Both me and Billie, during the first season, had a lot of stuff going on in our personal lives. Mine was that my father was very, very ill he'd been ill with dementia, and then during the course, for a couple of years, during the course of the show, he got diagnosed with cancer. And I had to take a few weeks off, do you remember?
I do remember that,
And
yeah.
this amazing actor came in called Sean Dingwall. And he played Billie's father. And Rose had never met her father, or I can't remember, but her father was passed. And there was this episode called Father's Day. And it's always tradition in Doctor Who that there's one episode that is Doctor Light. He's only in a couple of scenes. I was only in a couple of scenes, and Billie carried that episode. And I loved Father's Day because I understood that, because my dad was kind of lost to me because of his dementia. And Rose's father was lost to her because of death. And I found that episode incredibly moving to shoot and to watch, and also to see Billie, who a few months before was terrified, just pick it up and lead the whole thing. So, but then sometimes it's Dalek, because when my dad was ill, I was angry, so I took it out on the Dalek. But the best episode for me, for my Doctor, the best episode written for me was Stephen Moffat's The Empty Child. Stephen Moffat got what I wanted to do with the Doctor more than any other writer. So it's those three.
Okay.
Hi, I'm from the north as well.
Yay!
Yeah. I just want to say, big, massive fan. You know, Chris and Billie, you both carried the show for the first season. It was absolutely amazing. You got me into the show of being a Doctor Who fan, so thank you. My question for Chris is, what was your, in Big Finish recently, what was your favourite Big Finish story to record?
The 60th anniversary special. I don't even know if it's been released yet. But the quality of writing across Big Finish is really high. And I find myself doing episodes thinking, this should be on screen. But there's one particular episode which I've mentioned that I shot with, recorded with David Warner. And I don't want to give too much away. It's kind of multi-doctorish. And I think it was the last performance David Warner gave, and I watched him do it. And he was a friend anyway. I'd worked with him before, and we'd become very close. So definitely the 60th anniversary special.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Kelsey.
Hello.
I just want to ask if there was anything from the set that you took home, like on your last days.
Yeah,
maybe?
I took loads. I stole loads of stuff. Yeah, I constantly took stuff from the TARDIS because there were little like bits spread out loose, which was a mistake because I took pretty much all of it. I took one of the who was the woman who in the Slitheen episode, Annette? What was her character name? She was the MP. Annette Banning?
Annette Badland.
Badland.
She was a Slitheen.
Yeah, she was a Slitheen, and she had a ring, like a teleportation ring or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
I took that.
Billie's a kleptomaniac.
That's the takeaway from this.
She was arrested during the first series, and I bailed her out of a prison in Cardiff.
I've got better.
Yeah, you have, yeah.
Was there a moment as well, whether it was through your Doctor Who career or another point in your life, where it was like, wow, I've made it moment?
I felt like that when we did Doctor Who. When there was a big opening thing. I did in what was that hotel I used to live in? St David's.
St David's Hotel, yeah. Looked like a boat.
Yeah, it looked like a boat, and there was a big poster of us outside, and yeah. And I called all my friends and cried down the phone. I said, I'm happy. This is amazing.
Is there any for yourself, Christopher?
When I thought I'd made it.
Yeah. Whether it was in Doctor Who or at another point in your life, acting or personal.
Oh, personal. That's nice. I should have.
Oh, my children.
Yeah, my children too.
Yeah. Professionally, probably when I did the film Let Him Have It. I'd been unemployed for 3 years. then I got one theatre job, and then I was a lead in a feature film. But most of all, when I got to interview Sir Alex Ferguson 3 years ago, that's when I felt I'd made it.
I would as well. Thank you. It's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Good choice.
Hello. Hi. Just before answering, putting my question, I just wanted to say to Chris specifically, it's something you've said before in the past about your, I don't know, maybe worries about comedy in particularly in the first series.
That's in my personal life.
It's just something I wanted to say to you, that I really loved your comedy in that season. I think you did a really brilliant job in it. And that,
I think it's slightly overpitched, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the job.
Yeah.
I knew that I didn't really have much of Hugh Grant about me. You know, I was this angry, snarling, class-revenging Hamlet type. And I think the one regret I have about leaving is if I'd done a second series, I would have looked at the first series and calibrated the comedy. Some of it's too big. I appreciate the compliment, and I'll give you the $5 later. But that was a learning curve for me, right. Dropping some of the intensity and the straight. You know, I've got better at comedy. Some of those episodes I just can't watch because of my gurning.
But a question for both of you. I suppose, Chris, you sort of mentioned this about Dalek and Father's Day, but both of those were directed by Joe Ahern, and I feel like some of my favourite stories from that season were by him. And
by far and away the best director and the key director. I think he directed. We both loved Joe.
Yeah,
me and Billie.
The finale, it might be my favourite.
He directed 7 of 13. He's so responsible for that first series, Joe Ahern.
Right.
Joe's a huge comic book fan, and what he understood is he shot, particularly Dalek, like a graphic novel. The way he framed stuff, the close-ups. I mean, he's a brilliant director, and so deeply immersed in comic book and genre.
Yeah.
He was key, and he's a beautiful man as well.
And Billie, do you have any memories with Joe, like particularly in Father's Day, as Chris points out, like it was, you know, that was like your episode, so I don't know, how was it working with him and to get those emotions?
I felt really connected to him, actually.
We both did.
I didn't always feel like everyone felt connected to him. He was, you know, very much his own man, but I liked the fact that he didn't really give a shit what other people thought of him. He felt very much true to himself. He had a brilliant way about him. He was emotional.
He's profoundly shy as well, isn't he, Billie?
Really shy, but he was in it. Like he was in it, in the moment with you, all about the work. And if he was feeling overwhelmed, I never sensed that. I had a really great vibe with him, really great.
And I'm still very close with him.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
I worked with him since on Perfect Parents. And we live very close to each other, and we've got a couple of projects that we're trying to get made.
Oh, that's nice.
So I'm going to send the bucket round for money. Yeah, we're still very close.
That's great. Glad to hear it.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hello.
I asked both of you earlier in regards to like what advice you had for like aspiring performers and actors and such. So I suppose to twist it slightly, I would ask what inspires each of you personally, or what inspired you to pursue a career in acting or performing, be it acting, or I know Billie as well, you're also a singer as such. I was just wondering what inspires each of you personally, be that professionally or just inspired you towards a career as performers as such.
So for me, I think it is life that inspires me. I can go a long time without acting, and in many ways, I feel more mentally together because of that, if I'm honest. Like, I find filming as I get older quite mentally exhausting and tricky when you've got a family. But then I always reach a point where I feel completely rocked by something I've either experienced in life or seen in life, or a sense of the world that just brings about so much emotion. And I know the only place to put that is in acting, as a sort of way, as a release, as a way to sort of express feelings that maybe I can't express in life. So always just constantly inspired by the world that we live in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you what inspires you, Chris?
What inspires me really was I'm from a family of 5. I was 8 years younger than my brothers, identical twins. My brother Alan would have been an amazing actor, really. And my brother Keith would have been a fine artist. My dad could have definitely written and probably performed. My mum also was very creative in other ways in terms of cookery and stuff. And they didn't get the opportunities because of their class and because of their age. So what inspired me was these 4 extraordinary people who I live with. And because of generational and social changes, I got the opportunity to be an actor. So it always goes back to them, really, the love I got from them and the encouragement I got from them. And then people like Albert Finney, Jimmy Cagney, Ken Loach, people like that, great working class artists who kind of broke the glass ceiling, but mostly my family.
All amazing talents, I was agreeing with you.
We've got around 5 minutes left, guys, so we'll try and get through as many of you as possible.
So much, Thank you.
Keep it to 1 question each, if that's okay, guys. Thank you.
Hi, Christopher. As a recent graduate from Salford University...
Yay!
As a recent graduate from Salford University, what was your time like there?
I spent most of it in the boozer. Of course, I was a student. I was pleasure-seeking.
Yeah,
I was terrified. I was like Billie on the first episode of Doctor Who. I was petrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know Shakespeare from a shamrock. But I stuck at it. It was very intimidating. I felt it was a very middle-class industry, and art wasn't for the likes of me. But Salford Tech and some of the teachers, it was Salford Tech for me, wasn't a uni. It was a foundation, A-level foundation drama course, 1981 to 83. I had this thing that I was thick and I was too big and too cumbersome and to be an actor. So it was a real, very like Billie's thing, it was a real battle. You know, I was my own worst enemy. I was a self-sabotager. But it was the beginning of starting to think possibly I could do it. So I wish I could go back and do that again.
Yes, whereabouts on Chapel Street do you go to?
Well, it wasn't, ours was, I was at the Adelphi, this is Salford geography now, guys. You can all fall asleep. It was on Peru Street in Salford. And actually the building, the Adelphi building on Peru Street, was these stone stairs when you walk up. And I had to go on my mum's first day of work when she was 14, which would have been 1944, during the war. The first job she ever had was to deliver a message to the Adelphi building. So then in 1983, those years, 1981, every time I walked up those steps, I thought of my mum, a child, working a 40-hour week. So I thought, well, this is Bobby's job, you know. So the fact that I learnt to act in Salford is massive to me.
That's great. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Hello, Christopher. Thank you. That's a lot easier. Thank you. I'd just like to say I'm sorry to hear that what you went through behind the scenes.
Oh, listen, it wasn't like being down the pit. It's just politics.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a job. You all work with people that you don't like. Whether you're in an actor, a plastic moulding factory, or, you know, a boozer. Listen, I was getting paid a lot of money. It's fine. Please don't feel sorry for me.
Okay. I'd just like to say that whenever you're kind of giving a performance on stage, I imagine you get, you know, feedback straight away from the audience. Whereas I imagine television, because of post-production and editing and scheduling, I can imagine it can be months between you giving your performance and hearing any sort of audience feedback.
Television and film is a director's medium. They can do whatever they want with your performance. Whatever you do, they can take it into an editing suite and they can ruin it. They can make it better or they can mediocre. When I go on stage every night, and when Billie did her Lorca, right? You've got the edit. I'm playing Ebenezer Scrooge at the moment in A Christmas Carol at the Old Vic in London, and I go out and nobody stops me. Nobody says, do this differently. It's my edit, and it's live. So acting on stage is the greatest thing, but there's no money in it.
So you prefer doing that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because I don't like being edited. I don't like being told what to do by people who don't know better than me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, you guys really introduced me into Doctor Who. I mean, I watched some when I was younger, but this was like, you brought a whole new generation to it. And I let my son watch the first episode with you guys, and it's when you, Billie, walk into the TARDIS for the first time, and it feels like all of us are walking in for the first time together. So how does that make you feel? Like, that's a big deal, and thank you both.
Do you know, I watched that episode the other night, because I watched the new one, and I thought, oh, I feel all emotional. I'm going to go back and watch Rose, is the one you're talking about, isn't it?
Rose, yeah.
Rose. And I felt really moved by it. It's just a brilliant introduction to the world all over again. Yeah, I feel, I'm really, really grateful that I was part of that. As scary as it was, I'm jacked about it. And I'm really proud of that episode, for all my fear.
Hi Chris, hi Billie.
Hi.
I just want to tell you, you both mean so much to me. I love you both.
Thank you.
My question is, will you ever both consider doing Big Finish? Like together?
Depends on the money.
Depends on the money. Fair enough.
I've got a mortgage, Billie's got a mortgage. Big Finish, it's up to you.
I'd love it if you do.
Sorry, that's my answer, not Billie's. She doesn't want to be associated with my nonsense.
I'll second it.
Hi guys, firstly it was a pleasure meeting you this morning, so thank you very much for that. But Chris, I would love to know what your experience was on 28 Days Later.
Oh, it's a classic. Oh no.
I loved Killian. It was amazing to see a star born. Danny Boyle can be hard work, but he's very talented. Andrew McDonald, the producer, it's a pain in the arse. There was some really, really great young actors. That's what I remember. Or the name, because of my age. But, you know, obviously I was about 15, maybe 20 years older than my troupe. And they were all so keen and so... but I mean, you know, it's a small role. Major Henry Rest is a small role. Killian's the one to talk about that because he carried it. And I loved working with Brendan Gleeson. I'd never had any scenes with him, but he's one of my favourite actors.
Same.
Yeah. And I'd worked with Anthony Dodmantle, the cinematographer, and Danny on a thing called Strumpet, and that's where they experimented with what they were going to do on 28 Days Later with the lipstick cameras and shooting on, high resolution film and the, tiny stuff. I mean, it was a real kind of experience, and Anthony Dodmantle had come out of that movement. I can't remember the name of it now. So technically, it was fascinating.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My question's a bit personal, Chris. I'm from Little Hulton myself. I'm my sister as well.
I'm from Salford.
Oh, sorry.
Are you a Little Dungobbin?
Yeah, I was born
Oh,
there.
well.
Yeah, I live in London.
You don't like us, do you?
Your mum lives up the road from where I used to live.
Right.
So I think I've met you before as well.
My mum's moved now.
Oh, she moved?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I don't blame her.
She's got a bungalow with staircase in it. Don't know how she did that, but that's my mum.
But I don't blame her. I moved out of Little Hulton as well, so.
Yeah, well, everybody's trying to get away.
Did you go to Joseph Easton's by
I
any
did.
chance? You did. Okay,
Mr.
so-
Livesey was the head teacher.
Okay. So,
Head-
do you remember a teacher called Mr. Bates?
I do. We had to be careful how he said his name.
That's an
It was still the
unfortunate.
same when I was there.
He was the art teacher.
Yes. So I was going to say he said he was the one that kind of influenced you from art to go into drama, in a way.
I've had so many teachers saying they were the way they were my. There was a teacher from my primary school who I absolutely hated. She was a monster. And a few years ago, she was saying I started him off in acting. She started me off in therapy. She used to cast, right? She used to cast the Nativity every year. And regardless of talent, she would just cast her favourites as Mary and Joseph. And I was one of the people of Bethlehem, and she cut me at the dress rehearsal. And that's when I started with Freud and Jung and all that stuff. Really. And, alcohol. Mrs. What was her name? Oh, I don't know. Mrs. Jaws.
Okay, that was it. I was just going to ask, how was you influenced and
Who-
how do you feel looking back on it now?
There was an English teacher at Joseph Easton's called Mrs. Lancelot. There was an English teacher at Eccleston College called Mrs. Fleming. And there was an English teacher at Salford Tech called Mrs. Sora. They inspired me. But most of all, it was my mum and my dad.
Brilliant. Everyone give it up. Thank you.